everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm Train Nasarawa. Yes, we are in Abuja. Never mind what you see. Looks can be deceptive, I tell you.
No, I have not decamped. It's the same team. Yes, I'm live in the nation's capital, Abuja. I'm Coyote Okikilu. Great to be in your city, Chamberlain.
Yes, indeed, and I'm sure you're loving it already.
We'll get to that. I don't understand why it just takes 10 minutes
to start loving it.
To move from where your location to your destination. It is not fair. Guys in Lagos, I'm sure you have...
Remember today's date. I will remind you.
Okay, don't worry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Coyote, that was fast. 1 minute you're here and the next you're in Abuja. We're looking forward to having you back. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, the transfer window has closed. We are just on loan. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome. Today is March 29, as you very well know, and it's a Wednesday morning. Please make the best of it.
We can create our own window ourselves.
Absolutely.
We just did. Anyways.
And it works well.
So quite a lot happened yesterday, and I mean, towards the latter part of yesterday, and talking about fuel supply, what happened to the subsidy, and then the protest by Labour, many wondering, okay,
was today going to be the day?
Yeah, so what do we expect? So everybody who's anyone was just waiting and watching, just scanning through the dailies, the media, to find out how do we plan our days. But the dailies are reflecting a large chunk of what's happening, as we will as well here today on the program, and that's why we're just going to go right ahead and take you through some of the dailies we've got for you here today. So we'll start with The Guardian newspaper this morning. Take a look at how they planned this. Subsidy removal plan, that's in parentheses, raises anxiety as Labour breaks ranks. So, does it give you an inkling of what to expect already? Remember, the new government will be coming in soon. Many wondering, okay, how will this be approached? Look at the riders. Perhaps they could help. Labour, not aware of palliative talks on subsidy. You know, there's always that talk about palliatives in terms of what measures have been put in place if we're going to remove subsidy to cushion the effect, as they say. I often wonder if they are really going to cushion the effect.
Because to what extent, really? Because if we're removing subsidy, how much will the litter be?
Yeah.
It looks like everybody's on the same page on trying to at least sort or solve that subsidy conundrum. But what to do with it or how to handle it? It looks like Labour is saying, well, the price of petrol must not go beyond a certain band. But government is saying, well, we've set a date to remove it already. So what do we really want, or what are we saying is a big question.
And then if they remove subsidy, and doesn't that mean that they will no longer be determining by facts what and how the prices go, whatever band there is to be there? And doesn't it then mean that the forces of demand and supply, or the market forces, will determine? Is that the way it's expected to work? Is that what we expect? Is that what Labour expects? Because when they make all those comments, you wonder, if that's the case, why make certain statements? Well, all of that is in that realm, which we'll also get to find out. And by the way, anyway, I guess we'll focus on that as the program progresses. Look at the second rider. Henderson okays subsidy removal. NLC insists deadline. No, NLC resists deadline. So, look, they had said it time and again in June, and it's been in the budget for a while. So, can NLC feign ignorance? So, at what point, or have they always made that case about the deadline? So, what is this with NLC resisting deadline? That's why you need to read the paper and find out what context is this NLC resisting deadline, or what context does it apply. So, and then look at this part. Don't impoverish masses. ASCSN charges new government.
ASCSN.
So that's the part where they also go to the paper and check for themselves what that means. Clearly it's a group, So what do they mean by don't impoverish masses? Fuel subsidy goes, and all those, all those measures, which was initially, or which was originally aimed to cushion the effect. Because I use that advice because look, can we really and truly say they've been cushioning the effect of petrol price?
And what will those incentives be, actually? Is it reduced transportation costs? I think transportation will be at the root of it, basically. A lot of people use petrol for power generation. At least our mini power generation, they're generating set. So will there be adequate power supply? But don't forget, we've heard the discos and all other people on the value chain say if you want to have 24-hour power supply, you need to pay more. And we've seen that happen in other places. Don't forget that Labour is saying, in fact, part of the reason we're going to go on strike, or this action, was for electricity tariff. So will we have electricity supply? Will we be able to pay for it? So those are the things that would actually cushion this demand or the subsidy removal for petrol. Are those things in place? It's a very interesting time, especially for the incoming president. Labour has a new president. It looks like he's starting off on a very interesting note.
And he wants to make his own mark.
Exactly. The coming 3, 4, 5, 6 months will be interesting.
Oh, yeah. And as a matter of fact, look, we don't, most of these things is, the masses, the public, the masses are at the mercy of whatever agency or whatever body or whatever seller, whatever marketer, whatever agency, whatever group. They are at the mercy of all of these people. There isn't any recognized or effective agency to ensure that transport fares are properly regulated, that they're not arbitrarily hiked, because that's what happens. Just like that, it changes. As we see in developed societies, these things are regulated. Who's talking about all of those things? So it's been happening previously. That is likely what will happen when the subsidy goes away.
Oh, wow.
So
I don't know if the FCCPC.
How much can they do?
I know, right?
Bosses.
But at least someone needs to be responsible for these things. If it's not them, who should be? We need to actually make sure that prices are regulated.
Maybe that's where state governments will have to come in. The federal can't do it for states. They say it's a federal system. So what are the states doing about that?
Hopefully.
Okay. Our palliative committee yet to harmonize positions 1 year after. Will they ever?
There you go.
Okay. And then Ngige, look at this. Incoming administration to propose pay rise and then bear palliative burden.
Why incoming administration? I remember that the minister said something about that last year. He said something about the pay rise last year. So what's going on now? Wow.
So who wants to bear that burden? So there you go. That is a big lead on the front page of The Guardian this morning.
We'll take a look at Vanguard newspaper. PDP crisis. Yeah, the focus is on politics. Are you out? Damagum named acting chairman. I see the writers, I'm taking office to fulfill all righteousness. Well, for those who like to read between the lines, you wonder what that means. Well, that's like his first statement after taking office. And you see NWC to meet, review developments today. He behaved like a village headmaster. That's come from Bode George. Now, who is the he? I want to find out more details, and you see this one. Accept your reign has ended. Wike mocks are you. Very interesting twist, really, in the intrigues we've seen in the PDP. Some would say it was actually fast. The replacement, or whatever name you want to call it. We've seen this happen with the APC as well. Yeah. So a lot of people are wondering, are they reading from, the playbook and trying to replicate this? Will this be different?
Oh, dear.
Interesting one. Page 5 has more details. Of course, we're giving you some more analysis into that one. It's a big one, definitely. Lots of stories, as you can see on the front page of the Vanguard. You see the cash crunch story. NLC suspends planned strike, gives CBN 2 weeks to normalize supply. Now, how would we measure normalize? What is a yardstick to measure that normalize? What does normalize mean? Because, it's subject to anybody's interpretation or definition. So we need to be clear. If it's normal for me and it's not normal for 90% of the population, would I say it is normal? Lots of questions right there. But let's leave it there for the Vanguard newspaper. Guys.
And flip to Leadership newspaper this morning. Claudia, I'd like to answer your question because, like me, every other Nigerian has been affected by the cash crunch, and I hope that my view is representative of the views of many Nigerians. So normalized for me would be walk to a bank ATM and not find not more than 2 to 3 persons, ahead of me on the queue, and be able to withdraw at least 20,000 naira. That's normalized for me.
A better normalized would be to just sit at home and make money.
Well, sit
not
at home
going
and
anywhere.
make money.
You know,
we'll get there.
real normal.
Yeah.
They just stay in Abuja. Don't even say anything. Please go ahead.
Inspiration is coming. Also, normalized would be approach a POS and the normal charge of 200 naira for 10,000 naira and 400 naira for 20,000 naira. We hope that we'll return to status quo very soon. But let's take a look at Leadership newspaper this morning, and it also focuses on the PDP leadership challenge. That's a big story now. 31 days after presidential poll, G5 governors move to seal Ayu's fate amid PDP crisis. Now, this is leadership's account. We hope that it, accurately covers what exactly is happening. What we know is a member of the PDP took the national chairman to court after his ward in Benue State suspended him. About the G5 governors, well, perhaps the leadership has, an aerial view of what exactly is happening. But let's take a look at the riders and see if they provide some insight. Citing court order, embattled party chairman steps aside, ending his 514-day reign. Damagum takes over. Ayu is gone forever, Wike boasts. And Rivers governor Tom behind illegal suspension. Campaign council. Well, Ayu, does that accurately capture what exactly is happening for you? G5 governors move to seal Ayu's fate.
Well, G5 governors, are they PDP?
Well, G5
or PDP members?
In the PDP.
Well, they're two different things.
They're two different things. But we know them as PDP members.
Well, exactly.
Okay, but we'll ask a member of the PDP who's going to be on the program. It's just curious, and well, it's an interesting development. Take a look at this one also on the front page. 1 week after Kaduna train attack, victims' items unclaimed. 1 year, I beg your pardon, after Kaduna train attack, victims' items unclaimed. That's interesting. Of course, there are other concerns as captured by other papers this morning, which we'll look at later on, that talk about security around, trains still not adequately covered. But let's leave it there for leadership.
And switch to the Daily Independent newspaper. Strike over cash crunch. Labour soft pedals to monitor Naira supply for 2 weeks. You should actually go to our YouTube channel, Channels Television's YouTube page, and find out and listen to that video of the president of the NLC and the things that informed this decision. For them, the next 2 weeks is to monitor the sustainability of the initiatives of the CBN so far. But details of it you'll find on the front page, continues on the inside pages of Daily Independence. Ihedioha withdraws from Imo PDP Guber race. Stories on page 6. Find out why. PDP replaces Ayu with Damagum as national chairman. Your game is up in PDP. Wike mocks Iyocha Ayu. Again, that story is continuing on the inside page. As far as I'm concerned, let there be a strong enough opposition party. Period. Anything else is, for me, is just politics.
Absolutely. That's what Nigeria needs as we head into, another democratic dispensation.
Yeah,
a political party, to demand accountability and check excesses if there will be of the incoming administration.
Right above the nameplate, transition. Tinubu's team joins FG delegation to World Bank meeting. Find out the details of that on the front page, continues on the inside pages. And this just last one. Nigeria will earn more money if deregulated. Nigeria will earn more money with deregulated oil sector. That's ascribed to Pengasan. I read a report where Ipman says at the very minimum, with a fully deregulated petroleum sector in Nigeria, fuel will sell for 750 naira per liter.
Well, I wonder why, if that is not, an exaggeration to help make Nigerians mentally prepare for the worst.
Kola, calm down.
Just hold on, Ayo. Let me land there. Why isn't anyone talking about the proposed entry of a new player into the scene, and what that would do, the impact of that entry will have on the price of petroleum products?
You are anticipating. That's good. Calm down. That's the
These
daily.
are questions to ask.
Yes. Who are you asking? Me?
Well, I'm asking generally. You can answer.
All right, that's the
And
Daily
I guess can
Independent.
answer as well.
Yeah, this morning. Chamberlain.
Okay, so take a look at New Telegraph next. CSOs to INEC justify 400 billion naira spent on general elections. I'll ask the same thing, I tell you, because this is a lot of money. 400 billion naira.
Oh, yes.
So you can imagine that next elections, they'll come up with another budget and expect to increase it.
Of course.
So
inflation, maybe increased population.
How long can we keep
more
going on like
technology.
this? So can we afford to increase from this 400 billion naira, considering what we went through? Well, I mean, you saw the way it turned out. Has INEC even explained to Nigerians what transpired? I think there should be that conversation before the next budget cycle or demand from the Commission. We need a thorough explanation from the Commission to what transpired. How do we ensure this doesn't happen again? And there's so many questions because there are lots of experts who said they could have ensured that we don't face what we went through. Why did we not engage those experts who had alternatives to ensure that this wouldn't happen? So can they justify this now? CSOs are asking. And look at the writer. Ask why results weren't uploaded to the IREB. Seek special courts for electoral offences. Urge EFCC to probe those involved in vote buying others. Well, tall, short order, whichever way you look at it, it's here on the front page of the Daily as one of the writers, by the ways. And then, before I go to what's at the bottom strip, this one above this lead story, duties. Tariff adjustment underway as customs targets 1.8 trillion naira. Now, this impression that there's a revenue generating agency, it's a little, it has a question mark because, look, whenever they do all of these things, and by the way, it's still this manual inspection of cargo, despite the revenue that they make, and goods still suffer at the ports, and Nigerians, traders, anyone who does business there still take a lot of hit because of there was supposed to be this single window inspection of cargo. That hasn't happened as of yet, and many wonder why is that still being discussed as though it's an abstract. These are the things that we should, and besides, if you go to some states that have 2 terminals or ports, different charges in the same city. Why is that the case? What's happening to other terminals beyond this? Should they actually be hiking this tariff, considering what we're going through in the country? So this dreary business economic outlook, and then the still hiking tariff, those are some of the questions a lot of people ask.
I think another question has been in terms of the recruitment, the composition, especially particularly maybe the nation's capital, Abuja. There have been questions about just how representative those employments, the makeup is of Nigeria's, I would say, rich culture, ethnicity, and all of that. So lots of questions, really. The revenue part, I mean, clearly it's going to be an upward review of the rates, but also in terms of how fair, the employment process is. Questions to be answered.
So those are things that we need to revisit. Wherever questions are, we will ask them. Post-election crisis. PDP sacks Ayu, appoints Damagun acting chair. And then you see this image, Ricardo Buhari, Senate President from Southeast will bring peace to Nigeria. So everybody's making a case for themselves. They all want it. What happens and how do they proceed? I guess we're keeping our tabs on all of those ones. Indeed. Right there.
Well, next up is the Daily Trust, and this is a different story entirely. It changes attention, and it's about the Abuja-Kaduna train. This might shock you. 1 year after attack, full services yet to resume. Emphasis on full services yet to resume. And don't forget, they were eventually released in October last year after that attack in the early part of the year. But so the writers, how security operatives averted another attack. Train lacks central lock. Poses new security risk. Sources. So what is a central lock? I imagine it's not the type you have in your vehicles, right? I think it's going to be more complex than this. But I mean, what exactly is going on? Because I remember that some funds were said to have been released to secure the tracks and all of that.
Yeah.
And you see this one, deploy more technology victims. So have we done all of those things? Have we dotted the I's and crossed the T's? That's a big question. The picture on the front page shows traders at the popular Balogun market, which caught fire yesterday. Just yet another fire incident in Lagos State.
Wow.
It's good to see that there was some response to that one. And just finally, this is health related. Lassa fever kills 142 persons in 23 states in 11 weeks. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
And flip to This Nigeria. This Nigeria newspaper also follows up on the PDP leadership crisis, and this is the way it's captioned. Embattled Ayu steps down as PDP national chair. He's gone for good, says Wike, as Damagum takes over in acting capacity. Bode George, I warned him. Yeah, that's it for the big story. Take a look at this one at the bottom strip. It's also about politics. Tinubu's group threatens to resist interim government arrangement, absolves INEC of electoral malpractices. It's a page, I believe, page 5 read, just in case you're interested in that story, if you want to find out which group it is exactly, and where's the story about an interim government coming from. Anyway, what we know is that we have a president-elect, and he'll be sworn in a couple of months or even weeks from now.
One thing that I've known about our politics since forever is that there has always been and there will always be contestations. And that does not mean that faith columnists are just going to sit idle and not create narratives. We've heard that since as far back as. And we are privileged and thankful that at least God helps us thus far, 24 years on. It's the first time we're having it. But there are some people who are not benefiting from it. I think there's a lot of political conversation that needs to go on with certain classes of people. The fact that you do not win does not mean that you are out of governance. It does not mean that you are out of government. Even if you are opposition, play that role
effectively.
And in playing that role, people will agree or disagree with you whether or not you are doing right. And criticizing government is not the only way of playing opposition. If the current government does something good, say it. Okay, you can make it better this way.
Absolutely.
So, and please, let's not leave this to the CSOs just as
that's why we have the civic space. That's why we have citizen participation in government. But you're right on the money. If there's anything that we can celebrate as part of our electoral process this season, is the fact that we've had an unbroken stream of transitions, which is lacking in other parts of the continent. Just before we exit this Nigeria, take a look at this one, which concerns everyone and which of course has formed part of our conversation this morning. Cash scarcity. We're not satisfied with CBN's level of compliance that's ascribed to labor. And just how dissatisfied is labor, we'll find out later on the program. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
The Nigerian News Direct has this one: PDP supremacy battle. At last, Ayu quits as PDP appoints new chairman. It's politics, please. Deputy National Chairman North Damagum assumes chairmanship position. Stories on page 3, and several other stories you'll find interesting on the front page. Okay, speaking about opposition party, we will oppose interim government. That's right there on page 11 of the paper this morning, and several other stories, including this one that came from our program of yesterday. Lagos Jigawa poll, will of the people prevailed. Depends on who the editor is. You choose the angle, excuse me, of the story that you want, but that's what you have right there on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
Yeah, that's why we always have to look for the operative words and the context.
Exactly. And with that, we have come to the end of a look at the papers that we have for you this morning. Stay with us. We got more coming.
The Minister of Labour and Employment arrives at the State House hours before a planned picketing of the branches of the Central Bank of Nigeria across the Federation by the Nigeria Labour Congress to give updates on the recent happenings at the 68th Ministerial Weekly Briefing. The leadership of the NLC had earlier given the federal government a 7-day ultimatum to end the cash scarcity or face a nationwide protest by Wednesday, March 29.
We told the CBN what to do, and they did exactly what we asked them to do. Engage them, and they did. The NLC affirmed that there is an improvement in the cash flow. They praised the CBN at our last meeting yesterday and told them to improve. I'm optimistic they will not strike because we have apprehended, like I told you.
The minister responds to questions about the ministry's slow response to crisis situations.
We have conciliated about 4,000 labor disputes. More than, I think, 4,300 something since I came to that ministry. And you don't hear about them. We have what we call rapid response, especially in oil and gas. Rapid response, because we know the implication.
He also speaks on palliatives after fuel subsidy is halted by June.
It's left for the incoming government to take it or leave it and address the issue as as best as they deem fit. But definitely, like I told you, we're already handling some of the envisaged challenges. We are handling the issue of pay rise. I say all MDAs are doing that. Even for federal civil servants.
The minister affirms that 19 job centers offering various services have been established across the 6 geopolitical zones as part of the government's efforts to strengthen production self-sufficiency and skill development. But perhaps the real concern lies in private sector involvement, how to upscale unemployment rate since it quadrupled in 2015 and 2020 recession. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Well, on February 6th, before the elections, the World Bank Country Office in Nigeria said, and I quote, "There's a clear risk that cash shortages cause hardship and frustration, which could escalate social tensions, especially in a febrile political environment ahead of elections on February 25, presidential and parliamentary, and March 11, gubernatorial. Now the elections are over. Where is the cash?" Well, that's part of the conversation we're having with the former deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress. He is also an industrial and labor relations expert, Amechi Asogoni. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Well, speak to us first of all about this planned protest of the NLC, or planned action by the NLC, which has now been suspended.
Yes, I think the conception of that action was as a result of failures on the part of federal government, as it were, because, you know, as a nation and even as an institution, NLC represents a mass-based organization, and therefore any policy that tend to suffer the masses, hit on the workers, that actually make use of the economic route of government on a daily basis. And therefore, when a policy is not tend to favor Nigerians, workers are hit heavily. And as a result of that, Congress issue out notice, not just to go on strike for purposes of recording strike, but to at least cause government to be responsible and accountable. Because the question is, before now, this was a policy that we have invested billions of money, believing it will assist us in saving.
Well, you know, Mr.
But we're spending more now.
Yeah, there are those who wonder if this is really as important as the NLC says it is. It's been on since like last year, this whole policy, and the effect of it was supposed to start biting hard earlier in the year. However, the NLC didn't do any. Of course, it's been biting as hard, you know, even before the election. In the build-up to the election, it only got, you know, a little worse. Now the elections are over, and it's still the way it is, possibly not, you know, abating as much as one would have expected, despite the ruling of the Supreme Court. So one wonders, why did it take the NLC this long to effect this? Is it because the NLC also has a political party?
No, not really. But for the interest of the country, we should also know that strike action should be meant to be solving problem and not worsening the challenge. And therefore, when a situation was seen initially, when the CBN gave notice of 3 months or so, the orientation was not sufficient, because you can't release such policy that expect compliance from the masses without education. The orientation was very weak, and therefore our charge then was enhance your orientation method to the extent that the rural areas will get to know and possibly begin to work modalities to accommodate them. Because if you focus on the politicians as the basis for a policy, it will fail, because the masses will outweigh them. So the reason you saw delay was not, we don't call it delay, it was a strategy then. Because pro-election strike, any strike that is to come before election, government, including INEC, will blame every failure on our strike. We were very sensitive. It was a sensitive period. So it was deliberate not to engage in any strike until the election, to allow for democracy, so that nobody, because I know Nigerians would have also kicked against it. And you could see, that was why you did not see any outburst of group of any persons. People were more interested in going into the election, despite the difficulties, whether it was intended to suffer the masses. They wanted the election safe land. And now election is over, now NLC is coming back to ask.
Did that action benefit your party, the Labour Party?
The action of not going on strike?
The action of no cash.
The action of no cash intention would have been a benefit, but rather because the followers and lovers of Labour Party also suffered the same pain, and therefore they were crying and voting. So you can't just say it was a good deal. The intention was to stop vote buying, but it failed.
But there could have been strongly worded statements from the NLC, particularly at the peak of the cash crunch crisis, when, you know, a handful of Nigerians died. Pregnant women died in the north because they were unable to get cash, you know, to make deposit payments for treatment and all of that. But amid that, very little came from NLC.
You know, what people see from Congress that actually make news is when they are on strike. NLC, vividly, they made their strength known to government. As a matter of fact, the warning did not just come from the then president, but there was an organ meeting. A resolution was passed to make a press conference against the policy itself. We are not talking about making cash available. We're talking about the policy may not work because of what we have seen as challenges, especially when you say the old note will no longer be valid after a particular time. It means that including our parents in the village will no longer trade, because there are local governments in Nigeria where you don't have banks. So our argument got to that point. But it seems at a point CBN tends to hearken to the cry of the people that it seems this may bring hardship. But all of a sudden they insisted. So while we are seeing a call of advantage since they are saying vote buying, we are also seeing a bigger challenge that will endanger the livelihood of people, which we are suffering till today. So it's not just, even when they are promising we have to inject cash, you don't just inject money to get to people. You inject money with measure, so that you don't also create more problem in the economy, because inflation eventually may come in a way that it will still swallow the value. So I think it's a challenge that...
Suguni, some would say that even this decision to shelve the planned protest, because the NLC says it has observed little progress, in the provision of cash in banks, some would say it's a weak approach because the issues remain, and you've mentioned one of them: lack of banking infrastructure in many rural areas. Add to that, the lack of digital services, required, the inefficiency rather of the digital services, which affects not just Nigerian workers, but the SMEs and every other Nigerian that has to use, their banking, digital banking services for transactions. So at the heart of that, shouldn't the NLC, make a strongly worded statement or action by continuing with this planned protest?
I think Nigeria should appreciate Congress, because if you watch, the notice served to CBN, or to federal government rather, has created even the little positive answers you are seeing today. And the repeated effort made few days now by CBN to see how money will be in circulation, if we also obstruct it with strike, because we have to also consult our economic team. If strike is not the solution, then strike is not needed. At a point whereby measures of progress is being seen, Nigerians, even when you do street watch interview now, you will watch that majority may tell you that yesterday I was in the ATM, I got some money. If that is the essence of the strike, it's belated. So you also, as the leader of the people, should be proactive to the extent that, yes, that's why you see that the action was not suspended. They gave extra 2 weeks, within which federal government will have no other reason to say why money is not in circulation. Whatever economic method that is required to pump money into circulation, they should do so, believing that as a matter of urgency, Nigeria need help.
So if you don't consider this, continuing difficulty to access cash, as conditions viable for a planned protest, what would be? As a matter of fact,
Congress may decide to request for removal of the Epifele himself. Because strike action is not just that workers will not work for purposes of pumping money. If a man that actually convinced Mr. President, or whoever that convinced him, to saying that this will be a solution to us, is turning to buy hard to the extent that we're wasting money. For example, now, old money that we returned to CBN, part of it would have been destroyed. And now they are bringing back same to meet with the new note printed. The question is, there is already a quagmire in the process of this policy.
Now, if you say
incompetence.
If you say that, some of the old Naira notes have been destroyed.
It could be. I'm just saying, let's watch and see the report.
Okay, let's just imagine that it is. What's the assurance then? Because that's the question I was going to ask you earlier before Bukala's question came to which you responded. If indeed what you say is validated, because some economists had also hinted at that, if that were the case, how then can you be sure that this pressure on the CBN is going to be productive? What strategies or what processes do you see in place to ensure that indeed the CBN can meet up with the demands of the people?
Yes, what comes to my mind, and what I believe Congress should also be aspiring, is that because new notes have been printed, therefore it could be equivalent to whatever they have destroyed, meaning we are still safe. All money is still within the banking system. If truly CBN printed several billions before now, and then, or even up to $1 trillion, from the last print, new print they did, and was released into the circulation. The unfortunate thing was that he released that money to politicians. Indirectly, unknowingly, let me say unknowingly to him. The guideline on how to spend money came after the mistake of releasing that fund to the public and discovering that the money was not in the public. That was why during the election, all politicians' hands were full with the new note. So what I'm saying is, if I thought they destroyed part of the old currency, the new note earlier printed should cover the space. Therefore, they should not have any excuse on why we should not have money to spend.
You keep saying if at all they destroy part of the currency. What's your level of engagement with the CBN revealing? Are you asking these questions of the CBN, because there are videos that are bound, you know, and circulating on social media of Naira notes destroyed, seen in bags, you know, in a particular location. And in addition to that, what's your level of engagement with banks across the country to see indeed if, you know, the cash crunch is easing following the decision of the move of the CBN to supply Naira to the banks?
I know for purposes of ethics in the banking system and possibly security and even for their own efficiency, there are informations that they will not disclose. And we will take them by their words when they say we are ready to ensure that currency within 1 week is in circulation.
Okay.
So whenever they say so, we take them by their words, taking into cognizance that as we speak, it seems truly there is a little flow.
It could seem like to anyone, I think that's the angle Bukola is speaking from, that, you know, the CBN is probably just buying time. Because, I mean, from what we hear from the Minister of Labour and Employment, he quotes Section 7(8) of the Trade Dispute Act says, once he apprehends and starts conciliation on an issue, status quo antebellum is supposed to be maintained. So for now, according to him, the issue of the discussion is not of strike, but of implementation. Now, this is what the minister has said. At the expiration of the 2 weeks, what happens? Because it would seem like you still have to go back to the same minister. At least that's what the minister says. You still have to go back to the minister. If this is just the CBN buying time, and the CBN still, you know, is able to persuade the minister, convince the minister that, look, guys, you need to still hold on for another 2 weeks or another 4 weeks or whatever, what happens?
Then if Congress will go in that order, it will be a disadvantage to them, because Congress as an institution is also accountable to the people. They are not responding, neither reporting to the minister. So if minister, not just minister, the federal government has convinced NLC to a reasonable position that in 2 weeks' time, all you see as challenge will have been actually overtaken by event. And that fails to the significant view of people. NLC, including going on strike, should request removal of Emefiele. That is my recommendation. Because competency, we are talking about national blunder. A situation whereby other countries are laughing at us that we're making monetary policy that did not just fail, but was reversed. Indirectly, there is no policy. Even the idea of coming back in December to do otherwise. If bringing back money is a challenge for more than a month now, there is no assurance that we can even reinvent this policy in the nearest future. As a matter of fact, Emefiele should be praying to God to escape from this damage.
But Naira, just before I throw it to my colleagues in Abuja, the Naira notes scarcity is not the only issue that the CBN, the NLC has raised. 2 weeks ago, you know, there is that notice that NLC gave the federal government 7 days to end Naira and petrol scarcity. Petrol scarcity is another issue. How far with that?
The petrol scarcity, as you see, has become a tradition, a negative tradition that has kept us on the street. And people just believe that whenever there is scarcity, you go on strike. There is also a reform on the side of labor movement to the effect that what next after strike? What are the alternative measures to engage? And I have come to realize that engagement with government or organization has proven to give more results than even the strike action itself. Because most times, government, they are not aware, neither do they have knowledge of what to do until they engage labor. And by the time labor through engagement has actually issued some statement of fact that may eventually become add economic value, you see government running back. Don't be surprised that the yesterday meeting with the minister has further proven to him that there are certain things they needed to do that they've not done. And by the time they take this into consideration, it comes out well. So for me, petrol challenge that we have continued that has continued to record its ugly face in Nigeria is a thing of government failure.
I find it very,
government
very
failure, and
interesting.
for me,
when you say that the NLC had, the Labour Minister had heard some things from you the first time when they have members of the NLC in the cabinet working with them. But let's throw this to Abuja. Chamberlain.
Well, comrade, you know, the Pankerson president, just as my colleague started talking about the fuel subsidy component of that meeting, where he says it shouldn't sell, he's quoted to have said fuel should not be more than 400 naira per litre if it's deregulated, if the fuel subsidy stops, the payment stops. So tell us, is that the thinking of Labour community?
I don't think Labour has taken a collective decision as to peg price for PMS. What I know is that Labour has consistently said if fuel are not refined locally, issue of fuel subsidy removal should not be on the table. Because if the politicians have traded with our money till now without refinery, coming to remove it without refinery means they will not be refinery anymore. So as a condition to discuss subsidy removal, let the refinery work. That position was taken by National Executive Council of NLC. At a point it was jointly taken with TUC. So there is no individual union opinion in the matter. Labour position remain no refinery, no subsidy removal. And I think they will not reverse.
Tell us then. So now what does that mean in practical terms? Is Labour saying all the refineries have got to work, or if Dangote Refinery and Port Harcourt Refinery come on stream, will that be acceptable for Labour? Because at the moment, the June deadline still subsists. What does Labour think about that deadline?
At the same time, Labour may not also want to dwell under the pulse of an individual. Dangote Refinery may not be regulated deeply by government. A private managed organization decides its price. And don't forget, Dangote has said from the beginning that it's going to export its product. So the issue of getting sufficient supply is also a challenge. We can never limit the expectation of Nigerians to a particular refinery. That will even further define the failure of government. So what we are saying is refineries across Nigeria, we are strategically located to the effect that supply chain of this value will not be scarce in any region of the country. But whereby you have Dangote Refinery in Lagos and you expect somebody from Calabar or somebody from Sokoto to depend on the refinery, eventually the price then may go to 1,000. So, because it's about profit, it's about cost of production. Let the refinery work, because don't forget, we have not heard that federal government, through NNPC or otherwise, has laid off or planned to say that the workers are no longer enforced because refineries are not working. We have been paying salary, maintenance are done annually, and no result.
Let me just quickly merge all of this together. So Labour, as it stands now, says subsidy must remain until those conditions you mentioned are fulfilled. But don't forget that, you know, crude, the price of crude is globally regulated. And if you want, even if it's private or public refinery, there'll still be the transport costs, there'll still be the usual associated costs moving it. Bearing in mind again that it is heavily FX related, in quotes. It's the price of crude is globally regulated. So the truth is, as it stands now, subsidy is actually still going to the rich. The government has said it time and again. Most people who buy petrol in bulk are people who have lots of vehicles, SUVs, who are the rich. The poor don't really buy as much petrol. They just need to fuel, you know, their maybe vulcanizing machine and all of that. So really, is Labour really clear on what it wants and for how long it is willing to go on this? Just on a final note.
I think the question should be rather put to government. What has government done to the effect that refineries work for you and I? Because Labour is taking a position that naturally should be coming from the Minister of Petroleum. Because if we begin to give timeline for subsidy, it's even a shame. What I consider they are doing is official payment of the inability of government. They are paying for their failure. You know, it's like a compensation for Nigerians until they are able to do what is right in that sector. If refineries are not established in Nigeria, it will be a failure to government, it will be a failure to the people of Nigeria, including Congress, because what do you represent? If at the end of the day we are lacking refineries, the product is still being exported to be refined for us, and we buy our own product back to use. The shame is something that if you don't take a position, you will not exempt yourself from it. And the only way we can exempt ourselves is to make our request consistent. Let refinery work is a reasonable and a realizable agenda that Congress should never put on under the carpet. For me, it's doable, and federal government should sit up to ensure compliance. Refinery must work.
Yeah, there's really a lot to talk about with you, and several other things. But by the way, the comment made was by the Pengassan president was made during their UNEC meeting while not at the joint meeting with the TUC and NLC. We have to thank you very much this morning, Mr. Amechi Asuguni, former Deputy President, Nigeria Labour Congress. You're also an industrial and labor relations expert. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the best.
God bless.
Right after now, there is more. Please stay with us.
All right, joining us to discuss the developments within the People's Democratic Party, Mataya Sado, Director of Research and Strategy for Niger State's PDP PCC. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Wow, what a time for the party. Already fireworks are flying just after these elections. So at the moment, of course, there are different camps, different scenarios, one wondering. So first of all, give us, let's get your immediate impression about what is going on, because we know ever since the word of the party chairman came up with that position, with that announcement on TV, he eventually said, look, he remains the person on the seat. He's not going to take any of those seriously. It's only the party that can take a decision on him. And then another court decision came through. The latest position now is, at least as reported widely, is that the PDP has an acting national chairman. What do you think of all of this going on?
Okay, thank you very much, Chamberlain. It's a whole lot to take in at once. First of all, I think we must thank Nigerians that trooped out in March to vote in the last election, both the presidential and the governorship election that took place. And the developments in our party, as you have rightly mentioned, there are moments like these in history of societies when a group of people come together, or when an organization is facing maybe a situation that requires for them to have an introspection, for us to be able to fashion out a way forward. This has always been my position. Recall the last, I think, a couple of interviews I had with you before, when we had these challenges in the party, the G5 versus the presidential candidate, the so many noise that was going around in the air. I kept pleading with the warring factions or the people that were concerned, the leaders of the party, to sit down, to come together, to have a dialogue, have a discussion on the table, behind the scene, take away these troubles from the media space, and having discussions among themselves for us to be able to, put up a fight for the presidential election. Because what was at stake at the last election, it's not just getting power, but rescuing Nigeria. And this was one of the things that I think most people were interested in. Now, fast forward to the moment where we are in, we notice, we saw what happened at the elections, the irregularities, a lot of infractions, so many things. I think what our party is supposed to be focusing on at the moment is trying to retrieve the stolen mandates by the All Progressive Congress, and now we are having this distraction of having to deal with changing of baton and all that. But look, like I always say, I will always say the cup as half full rather than half empty. And a situation, whenever a situation presents itself, what people like me always do is to think about what is the best way forward, what do we need to do, how do we handle the situation. And I think that is what is on the table of the people who have been given the responsibility of leading the party.
What would you say should be the best way forward now?
I think the acting national chairman, someone who I think have known to an extent, who has contested to be a governor of a state, is a competent young person, and I believe that he should be able to bring in new ideas and bring in new people, put a couple of people together in a room and sit down with them for a week or two. Let's fashion out a way forward for the party. How do we galvanize the party? How do we galvanize the membership of the party?
So if we understand you, are you suggesting that because comments attributed to Mr. Ayu suggest that he will fight on and keep his position, but there are some others who think, look, what else does he want to do? Is he still going to fight on? Shouldn't he move on? Because there's still election for states coming up. The party needs to pull together and see how they could put up a common front. So are you suggesting, look, let this active national chairman just see it through?
Yeah, that is my suggestion, and that is my advice to the party. That is my advice to Mr. Ayu, Dr. Ayu as well, who I know to an extent, and we've exchanged a couple of messages about way forward for the party, even before the elections. And I believe that he has the intention and good heart for the party, but of course a lot of things were misunderstood, and now we have entered into a new phase. I think it is better for us to all just let things slide, and let there be a coming together of a new set of people with a new set of ideas. All that has happened, if what we are all looking for is for the good of the party, if what we are looking for is for the good of the society, of the good of the country, if we want to be able to stand as a people that will provide good leadership for the society, we must at some point be able to and be willing to accept certain kind of sacrifices and make certain kind of sacrifices for the common good of the society. It is not easy when you are asked to, step down your position or step down your ambition. I was a contestant running for election, and at some point having to have a discussion with some of our leaders about some of the things that needs to be done, some of the compromises that has to be established for us to be able to, move forward. And some of us have had to accept such kind of hard decisions in the past.
Right.
And I believe the purpose of the good of this society and the good of the leaders of the party, yes, it's wise for the leaders, for the outgoing leaders to Dr. Ayu as a person to accept this as a sacrifice that he will need to make for the society. And I also want to call on the G5 and other people to please they should try to desist from making some kind of comments that are capable of inciting some kind of unnecessary violence or some kind of issues within the party. What we should focus at the moment primarily is how do we move forward. Look,
well, Mr. Sado,
speaking, the
it's
issues
interesting.
around.
Pardon me to comment. It's interesting you mentioned the G5 because remember that the crux of their demands was the removal of the national chairman, whom you've just described as the outgoing national chairman. Well, now there's an acting chairman in place, and that was their demand: have someone, at least from the south, take on that position. But it looks like that has happened right now. So, in terms of the way Mr. Ayu managed, the conflict within the party, the different interests. I mean, we had Peter Obi in your party under his watch left. We had Kwakwaso left as well, the G5 governors as well. So in terms of managing those conflicts, those dissenting voices, and then the outcome of the elections, do you think it's a fair evaluation for those who said that, well, he maybe oversaw the failure of the PDP as a party? Is that a fair evaluation?
Well, Kayode, you see, some of these things are not to be discussed on the national television. The lessons have been learned, the mistakes were made. There are some of us who reached out to the leadership of the party at some point for the need for us to make certain concessions, for us to be able to move forward, because what was at stake, like I said earlier on, was not just about getting power, but about rescuing this country. Now, we have found ourselves in a position whereby a lot of mistakes were made, and these are things that should be, if we truly want to move forward as a people, these are things that I think we should sit down in the boardroom of the PDP to analyze deeply with all sincerity and desire for moving forward, for us to look at the things that we have done, look at the mistakes that were made, look at those who were offended, look at those who have left the party, and let's look for a way to bring everyone back together to make a comeback for this political party. Now, you see, because if I want to dwell on what was done, the mistakes that were made, and issues that were raised, and all that, we're going to continue to just make a lot of noise, and we will not make any progress.
Well,
what
Mr. Sado, right, pardon me again. It's always been said that it's important to learn from previous lessons. But how would you learn if you don't go through those issues and say, okay, maybe this is where we got it wrong?
We don't have to go through those issues on the national television.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's understandable. That's intra-party affairs, as they say. But if there's anything we've seen, all of those affairs have been thrown into the open. In fact, all Nigerians, literally, who are politically savvy know what has been going on within your party. And it takes me to the next point, how maybe politicians, think, how they receive things. For the outsider, they probably thought this was easy. It was clear. You have an election to prosecute. They always say that every single person matters. So why not close ranks, get everybody on board, win that election, and then you can now discuss the issues later. So, I mean, what are the things that politicians consider in making decisions? Because, again, as I said, people out there thought it was not rocket science. These things should have gone a certain way. So what were the considerations, or how do politicians think, really?
Well, Kayode, you will need to join politics to be able to know how politicians
I'm okay as a reporter, Mr. Sado.
I think, like you see, there are a lot of egos at some point, egos at work and egos at play, and then sometimes some mismanagement of certain issues will escalate certain issues to a level that it becomes a big problem. But so really, sometimes it has to do with individual understanding of issues and management style. So it's really not about how politicians think, really. Sometimes it's just about these little issues, and then sometimes also allowing certain things to get into the public domain that becomes an issue that don't necessarily needs to be in the public space, and then opinions start flying here and there.
Okay, so Mr. Sado, let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos as you wind down.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Sado, I'm just curious, some of the papers reported this morning that, the fate of Mr. Ayu may have been sealed by the G5 governors. So I'm just wondering, is this perhaps, from his suspension by the ward to the court order restraining him from parading himself as national chairman pending the determination of the suit, is it the hand of Esau and perhaps the voice of Jacob?
Dr. Ayu as a person to accept this as a sacrifice that he will need to make for the society. And I also want to call on the G5 and other people to please they should try to desist from making some kind of comment that are capable of inciting some kind of unnecessary violence or some kind of issues within the party. What we should focus at the moment primarily is how do we move forward. Look,
Mr. Sado, it's interesting. Pardon me to comment. It's interesting you mentioned the G5 because remember that the crux of their demands was the removal of the national chairman, whom you've just described as the outgoing national chairman. Well, now there's an acting chairman in place, and that was their demand, have someone at least from the south take on that position, but it looks like that has happened right now. So in terms of the way the different interests. I mean, we had Peter Obi in your party under his watch left. We had Kwakwaso left as well, the G5 governors as well.
Is that the acting national chairman should immediately reach out to these people, bring all of them together. Is it caucus? Is it the National Working Committee? Is it the expanded stakeholders meeting or committee? They should all come together. Look, let us lock ourselves in one room. What is the best way forward for the party? The PDP is not just the political party for the sake of political party alone. It is a political party that has the responsibility and the mandate to rescue Nigeria. And I believe that majority of Nigerians came out en masse to vote for the PDP on the day of the election on the 25th of February. So these are the
let's wrap up now. We need to really thank you for coming on. So pardon me for butting in, but we'll definitely keep tabs on this kind of matters. Thank you for your time this morning.
You are welcome, Chamberlain.
All right, so we're back in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We'll turn our attention now to Nasarawa State. The Commissioner of Police joins us this morning. Mr. Mayaki Baba is the Commissioner of Police in Nasarawa State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Morning.
Okay, so let's get right to it. We've seen some protests in Nasarawa State about the just concluded governorship elections. Some parties, PDP members, not happy with how it turned out. So we've seen some persons who voted saying they don't like how the police handled some of those scenarios and how the elections also panned out. But then there's this release from the police banning protests. So could you take it from there and tell us, how is the command handling what is playing out with the protest in Nasarawa State?
Thank you, Chamberlain. As a matter of fact, the election came and successfully the result was declared. And after declaration of results, some set of people decided to embark on protests. As usual of us, the security agencies, especially the police, we try as much as possible to provide them security, to guide them, and of course, lead them all over the places they want to protest to. We provide enough security for them. That continues without abat, but subject to the intelligence report after about 5 days of protests all over the states by those group of people. The intelligence report that came to us revealed that there's likely going to be a total breakdown of law and order in Nasarawa State. And as it is, as a chief secretary, we cannot fold our hands and allow lose of security of our good citizens of Nigeria, particularly the good citizens of Nasarawa State. And it is to that effect we felt that a measure needs to be put in place so that at least let there be some level of peace. So we decided to go for that option of suspending or banning protests all over for a while to give room for peace to reign in Nasarawa State.
Okay, so from what, if I understand you clearly, you say that you issued that ban because you got information that there is likely going to be a breakdown of law and order with the protest. So not that it was certain that there was going to be, it was likely. So if that is the case, that there's likely going to be a breakdown, isn't it the role of the police to then provide security for those who are protesting, albeit peacefully, as they say, rather than issue or suspend, ban, whether it's going to be peaceful or not, across board?
Thank you, Chamberlain. It's just a matter of semantics. Grammar is not like it's totally, there's every available fact surrounding the fact there's going to be total breakdown of law and order. Because some other groups were ready for war. And we fold our hands as security agencies to allow such situation to happen where peace has been existing for a very long time. So we now decided to say, okay, even though we've been providing you security for all these protests all along, let us suspend action. And of course, let everybody take other option, other alternative measure to protest. And there are other alternative measures, not necessarily to go to street. And that's what we did.
So is it unlawful for people to protest in Nasarawa State?
Not at all, Chamberlain. There's constitutional provision that permits lawful protests by fellow Nigerians. We have a provision of the law in the Constitution, which we are fully aware of. But where the situation is going to be let loose, where security is going to be affected, where life and property will be affected, then there's need for us to take a measure so that we don't allow loss of life or properties or people do otherwise. Since there are other alternatives, let us allow them to go for other alternatives to provide.
Okay, so the senior lawyers have consistently told us that the police, it is illegal for the police to ban protests because the laws, the Police Public Order Act, Section 40 of the Constitution guarantees people to protest peacefully. So if they are not violating the law, can the police then say you cannot protest because we suspect that we have information that people will violate it?
Yes, I am aware, of course, that citizens have right of protest, and we are never dispute that. But the fact is this: every highly intelligent available before us would have been a total breakdown, ready for war, different factions. And if you allowed it, the next thing would be what proactive measures police officers are taking to prevent that. However, we did not ban the protest in totality anyway, but to give room for peace. Even as I speak with you, some section of the group of aggrieved party has carried out a very simple and soft protest in Karo and some other places, and we're still giving them police. So we did not have intervene or interfere with constitutional provision. We know the provision of the law very well, and we are very careful about it. But for a measure to be taken within a very short period to avert total breakdown of law and order in the society, then I think it's our duty as a police officers to actually respond to it quickly so as to avert any total breakdown that will be unpalatable for the society.
Right, because the way the ban came across, I mean, it seemed authoritarian because we are in a democracy, and I mean, there's freedom of expression within lawful means, of course. And the intelligence you got, just to be clear, because the majority of the protesters, or at least the ones that a lot of Nigerians hear about, the women, the mothers, even grandmothers who have been protesting now. Is it regarding that particular protest that you got intelligence that it was going to turn maybe violent or, you know, threaten the peace of Nasarawa state?
Thank you. You see, the protest was a continuous protest, and we are providing security for the protesters. But very highly intelligent, very strong intelligence came up with the fact that there's going to be other groups from different variant communities who are also coming up to challenge this constant protest task, and they're going to have a total breakdown. And we don't want loss of life. We love everybody as citizens of this country and citizens of Nasarawa state. So we are not giving an order to contravene the Constitution, but it's just for a temporary measure so that the situation can be under the control. So I would not let lose security, a peaceful society like Nasarawa, which has been a peaceful state. And that's just what we do. Never do that to completely contradict constitutional provision, which we are fully aware and which we respect as a Democrat ourselves.
Commissioner, I want you to speak pointedly to this. I mean, we had the former minister, Labaran Maku, on the show, and I mean, he spoke about what he thought was an order from the governor to the police to actually ban that protest. So speak pointedly to that point that was made. Did you get any sort of communication from the governor to stop the protests or to take action regarding the protests?
Thank you. I do not take order in respect of security where it's going to be security loss of security in where I'm policing. I don't wait for governor's orders before I carry out my duty. I'm paid to maintain law and order anywhere I'm working as a police officer, senior police officer. And I haven't gotten this very serious intelligence report. I felt a measure must be taken. I consulted my security chief, other security chiefs in the state, and we come to resolution that let us give it a kind of temporary banning, let everybody relax and have peace. His Excellency, the governor, have not even met me. I've not seen him for this for a long time now. So I was never given order by anybody. I did what I should do as a chief security officer or as a senior security officer in the state. And I haven't consulted my other security service chiefs that we are working partly together with. And that's what I did. Not because anybody gave me an order or governor gave me an order, not at all. It's just unfortunate for such a statement to come up.
The governor is the chief security officer, as it is said. So are you saying that you don't take orders from the governor at all on any issue, either in the past or in recent times? Have you ever taken such orders or generally orders from the governor?
Not at all. We take order from chief security officer, but there's a little clause. You take order where you know that that order is in line, in consonance with the rules of security duty. But where, like, you don't wait to really carry out your duty when the security is about to lose. So I take order from the governor where the order is actually genuine, but where the order is not that genuine in terms of security of life and property, definitely, I have a responsibility as a senior security officer to also discharge my duty. And I think I can consult my other security services and we'll go for the best and we'll do it. Not necessarily that I have to wait when security is about to lose. I get an order from the governor before I prevent loss of life and property, not at all.
The concern here, or in fact the fear here, is essentially one side, or at least supporters, people who voted for one party, seem to be the ones protesting the result of this election. And it's important for the police not to seem to be taking sides. So how are you handling this such that it doesn't appear, and in fact maybe apparent to people, that looks like you're backing again, the government, who was a participant in this election and was said to have won this election, how are you doing it such that you don't seem to be taking sides to the people watching?
I think that is not very true, because what I say is not true. When the protesters from other parties started, we gave them full security coverage, provide the policemen to escort them to and fro and everywhere they want to go. So we were with them, and so they were not attacked. So we never take side with any political party, neither do we with anybody. But we are doing our job as security officers posted to the state to maintain security of law and order, and that's what we are doing. We never take order from anybody, neither do we take side from any political aspect. If we do take side, we wouldn't have given them police security while they were protesting. But because the protesters were constantly, every day protesting, and the other groups want to emanate a march to want to also come up to counter and, of course, to attack, them, and of course the society, everybody, then will now see that there's danger looming. And if there's a danger looming somewhere, then it's important for us to take a proactive action as senior security officers, and that's what we did.
So, Mr. Baba, how long is this suspension for now?
Of course, if I have to tell you now, since that order temporarily measure taken, a lot of people have been thanking me and congratulating me for even coming up with that they now have a rest, they can rest peacefully now, they have a rest of mind.
Did you say people are congratulating you for suspending protests?
Nasarawa citizens feel happy that they were able to have confidence that they can peacefully, because what they were thinking that there's going to be dangerous situation that will come up and they don't know how to end.
Well,
so you can see.
If I heard you correctly, you say a lot of people have been congratulating you ever since you suspended protest in Nasarawa.
Congratulating the police action because of the available information before then that things will get loose and will get out of control. And because of that, fear everywhere. But with this measure, there's a relaxation in the minds of people. However, go to your question. We don't have a time limit. As long as anybody wants to go out for protest, peaceful protest, we are available to provide security for that.
All right, so since they are congratulating you, and then you said you had intel, the credible intelligence that there were going to be disruptions and violence, has anything led to suspected people? Have any arrests been made? What do you have then as a result of that threat, or the credible threat, as you describe it?
Under this situation, you cannot make arrests where a crime has not been committed until crime is committed before you make an arrest. You dare make an arrest now, of course, it's an allegation that you are taking side, you are this, you are that. No, but what we want to do is to sustain the existing peace, and that's the measure we took. And you see, as I speak with you now, some protesters, like in Karo, are still ongoing peacefully, and our policemen are with them, providing security for.
Commissioner, I think you haven't responded to how long is this suspension going to be for?
I'm saying there's no question of time elapsing. Even today.
Is it indefinite?
No. Even as I speak with you today, people are still carrying out peaceful protests in Karo, and we are still providing security.
So why did you issue the suspension then?
Then the issue is for at least caution be put in the minds and people to really know that we are available to really protect the society, which we did.
Okay, so it's important to put that in perspective for people who may have misinterpreted that as a total ban. Peaceful protests are still allowed in Nasarawa State, if we get you correctly, Commissioner. But we'd like to respond to this report of a reported attack in Kuru Village in Total Local Government area in the early hours of this morning at about 1 a.m. There are unconfirmed reports that some people were killed and villagers injured. Do you have intelligence on that? Do you have reports on that, and what can you tell us?
Yes, I have the intelligence, I have the straight report on that. I have the report on that between the Fulanis and the Baggies. And there was killings, but as much as possible, we summoned leaders of the two tribal groups, and we had a very serious dialogue with them, warning them to go and maintain peace, and the effort is on to arrest the culprits. However, we have sending a good number of security personnel, both the police, the civil defense, the military, the DSS, they are there now to sustain the peace, to ensure that it does not get escalated. So we are on top of the situation.
So how many people were killed, Commissioner, in that attack?
In the attack, I think, is 2 Fulanis, then 2 Bari people were killed. Then later we killed another 2 Fulani as well, 2 in short.
Okay, so just one more thing. So we understand that the command arrested about 17 political thugs a couple of days ago. What is the situation now? Have they been charged to court?
Thank you for that question. Prior to the election, just at the eve of election night, we arrested a good number of suspects with arms, firearms, made up of pump actions, ammunition, and so many dangerous weapons. And they were profiled. And as I speak with you today, the case is already in court. They already headed to court.
Did they tell you about their sponsors? Are you telling their sponsors?
We are on that. We are on that. We never let loose because we must get the sponsors arrested.
Are they big fishes?
In fact, among the sponsors, those who came forward, sponsor 1 is already with us and is being interrogated. And I think we're going to get to that. But until we get to the facts of the matter before we come on air.
Is there any high-ranking politician among their sponsors?
We are still on it. Let the investigation unveil the fact of that. As soon as we get out investigation total and get to that point, we'll definitely come on here and let the public know.
All right, the Nigerians have heard you say, well, so we'll be waiting for you to give us that information as to those high-ranking members suspected to have been their sponsors. But we thank you for talking to us this morning, Mr. Mayaki Baba, Commissioner of Police in Nasarawa State.
It's my very good pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, then. Well, back in just a moment. We'll be going to Jigawa State next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Now we're joined by His Excellency Umar Naladi, who is the governor-elect of Jigawa State, and he's also the deputy governor of Jigawa State. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, not many times that you see deputy governors eventually move up and win the governorship elections. Just a few states have managed to do that, and you being one of them. So congratulations. It might be in order for your elections that's just concluded. So, but concerning the elections, did you, well, maybe you might say you saw it coming, but how are you transiting now from your position as deputy governor, and then eventually you're going to be the one to lead the state out of the current situation to a better place?
You see, the election has come and gone, and alhamdulillah, we have won the elections. And we have already set up a transition committee, and the transition committee is working. So we are putting all apparatus and all the tools necessary for the transition of the government from the new government, from the old government to the new government. Even though it's almost the same government, but still. We are putting a transition committee that will work to ensure that there is smooth transition.
Now, there are so many challenges ahead of you, which I'm sure you know already, because you also the deputy governor, from the economy to unemployment to education. And maybe we should start from education. The number of out-of-school children in Jigawa State is huge. There are research that has broken a lot of those down in terms of the age, the demography, those who are out of school, those who dropped out of school. It's a challenge. I imagine that will be one of the issues you want to address. So tell us about it. What is your thinking about what to do with this data?
Yeah, you see, it's true that the number of out-school of children is a bit high, but I think in the recent years we have done a lot to reduce the number of out-school children. Now, because of the VESDA program we have from the federal government, a lot has been done to ensure that so many people have been brought back to school, and also the introduction of the school feeding program by the federal government and the one implemented by the state government has also helped a lot to ensure that people are retained in the school. In addition to that, in my agenda, we have intended also to look at the possibility of what we are trying to do to look at the Islamic education and the Zangaya system of education. That is, with that, we are sure that once that is reorganized and then brought into the normal education curriculum, and then we also try as much as possible to give a necessary support to it, then we feel that we'll do a lot to reduce the number of out-school children. And I'm sure that we'll work studiously on that to ensure that we reduce the number of out-of-school children. Like I said, we have done so much this time, and then we are going to build on that through the programs we intend to do, the Zangaya system, and we want to bring the Zangaya system into the educational system, and by bringing it into education, that will give us an advantage, maybe to provide a budget line for it, and then once that is done, we are sure that we will heavily and greatly reduce the number of out-of-school children.
You know, I must actually commend Jigawa State, especially with that report that came out showing that Jigawa is second on the ease of doing business index, that list released by PEBEC. So yes, I mean, that's commendable. But when you look at the flip side, multidimensionally poor people in Jigawa State, over 5 million people, almost 6 million, makes it the fifth state with that highest number. And I wonder, how do you plan to translate that? Because on the one hand, you have that good rating that says, well, it looks like it's good to do business here, welcoming investors. But on the ground, you see that there are lots of people who are multidimensionally poor, and that's from the MBS's, that data that was released recently. So what is the thinking regarding getting people out of poverty, using that for your own good?
Yeah, you see, definitely, this administration, we have done a lot to ensure that we have reduced the level of poverty through various policies and interventions. Now, for instance, the empowerment program we have done for both youth and women has helped a lot, especially to ensure that people have access to funds, and also they are able to have their petty businesses improved. And once that is done, definitely you see that the level of poverty will definitely come down. And in addition to that, we have our BOSS program that we want to expand the empowerment program. And also, in addition to empowerment, we also have an intention to encourage and support small and medium-scale businesses. That we feel that once that is done, we support the small and medium-scale businesses. We try as much as possible to provide access to fund, and also in addition to access to fund, we try to as much as possible to give them counseling, and then to help them see how they can grow those small and medium-scale businesses. With that, we feel that we will definitely be able to reduce the level of poverty. And in addition to that, you should be able to know that Jigawa is an agrarian state. We have done so much on agriculture. The cluster system of agriculture has brought a lot of advantage and also has helped to improve the economic status of our people. Now, we intend to expand greatly on that. We try as much as possible to expand our irrigation facilities. Right. And once we expand our irrigation facilities, we also feel that we should be able to encourage research and development. And also we try as much as possible to have collaboration with both local and international partners so that they will have an investment in agriculture. Once that is done, we feel that will go a long way in creating more jobs. When one jobs are created, and also to provide food security and also to generate more employment. And also it will also help us to increase our internally generated revenue. So definitely when we do a massive investment in agriculture, which we intend to do, to build or to upscale what we are presently doing, and we feel that we will be able to greatly reduce the level of poverty among our people.
Right. So quickly, I mean, you have a rich experience across public and private sectors. A lot of people might not know this, but you're an accountant and auditor, so figures actually mean a lot to you. So currently, 5.76 million people multidimensionally poor. What is your target? What do you plan to cut it to, at least maybe by the end of your first term, whatever time frame you want to give to it? What is your target?
Well, you see, definitely with the program we have on ground and our intention to upscale it, to scale what is on ground, then we feel that definitely by the end of the first term, we should be able to reduce the level of poverty in Jigawa State by at least 50 to 60%, inshallah.
Okay, so now, still talking on some figures, the unemployment rate, according to the MBS in Jigawa State, is about 41%. But if you then combine underemployment and unemployment, they say it's about 80%, second only to Imo State here. So how do you plan to approach it? Do you have any target in terms of what you want to do with this?
Well, I think, I don't know where you got those figures, but the unemployment rate, I could remember at 2015, when we came in, it was about 38.69%. And by 2022, it was about 33.3%. So I don't know how you got the 40%, but that's exactly what we have as a figures. So, and this figure also, we intend to bring it down drastically. Like I told you that we have an advantage because of our agricultural programs. That agricultural programs has helped a lot, especially the cluster systems where youth will be encouraged to embrace farming as a business. And the government will try as much as possible to provide a lot of incentives in terms of inputs, and also we also try to provide extension service, so that will assist the farmers to ensure that they have embraced farming as a business. Now, let me give, for example, if we take rice, for example, when we came in 2015, the rice production is about 2.5 tons per hectare, and the 2.5 tons per hectare. Now, because of what we have put in place in terms of extension services, in terms of provision of input, in terms of best practices, now the production has gone to about 5.5 tons per hectare, and also in some places 6 tons per hectare, and in other places even 8 tons per hectare. That has greatly improved the income of our people, and that has made our youth to embrace agriculture. And then we will try to upscale this, and also as much as possible to provide more support. And once that is done, I am sure the level of poverty will definitely drastically be reduced. So we really have a plan, and then the plan is a workable plan, it's something that is practicable, it's not an imaginary plan, it's something that we have tested and we have seen it work. So I'm sure by the time we upscale it, and we will be able to reduce the level of poverty. And I think achievement of 50 to 60% reduction is going to be possible.
Well, Your Excellency, I actually went beyond 2015 and went to 2020. So it was published March 15 by the MBS, Q4 2020 NBS report on Nigeria's unemployment rate. So there they broke it down for states, and that's where we get the figure for Jigawa State, just for the records. But let me bring in my colleagues from Lagos. They got questions for you.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Ms. Omar, just like you take you back quickly to the issue of education, you talked about your proposal for the introduction of Islamic education, and you made reference to Dinyadi, I believe. I'm just interested in knowing if this covers digital learning initiatives for the children, and especially to be in line with modern methods. Also, the problem of the dearth of teachers in Jigawa State, which is under this current administration, which you have served. If you were unable to tackle it under this administration, which you have served, what are you going to do differently? Mr. Namadi, did you get my question?
No, not really, because I think it's failing.
I was taking you back to the issue of education, asking specifically if your proposal for Islamic education would cover digital learning initiatives for the children to be in line with modern methods, and also relatedly the problem of the dearth of teachers in Jigawa State, which dates back in fact to the first term of your current principal. And this is an administration under which you served. So if you were unable to solve the problem, and now what would you do differently as governor-elect?
Yeah, you see, the issue of dearth of teachers, yes, is a reality. But what we intend to do is, let me tell you also, we have done a lot to improve the teacher-pupils ratio in Jigawa State, and also the issue of the digital learning tools. We have introduced the digital learning tool, Kian machines from China, and I think it has been working very well. And it has helped a lot to also improve the learning system in Jigawa State. Also, in addition to that, I think we have done about 3-4 employments during this administration, and we intend as much as possible also to upscale the digital learning process so as to reduce the dearth of teachers in our primary schools. Also, in addition to that, we have recently introduced the J-Teach system, which is also an equivalent to the N-Teach introduced by the federal government. This J-Teach has also greatly helped to improve the number of teachers in our primary school. But still, yet we are not where we want to be. But like I said, we'll, as much as possible, based on the available resources, try as much as possible to bring in more teachers and also to upscale even the J-Teach arrangement. And also, in addition, the digital learning will also upscale it. And once we combine these three initiatives, I'm sure will drastically reduce the number of teachers in our secondary school.
Mr. Namadi, one of there are a number of issues that you've dealt with for my colleagues. But let me take you back to one issue Kade raised with you, only this time about children. It was in 2021 that your government collaborated with some organization to assess the level of poverty for children, and in August of last year, that report was released in Jigawa State that 73.9% or thereabouts of children in Jigawa State are poor. Now that is the future. What are you doing to secure their future?
Yeah, you see, like I said, you see, the level of poverty, yes, is, you see, we have a lot of programs to ensure that we have, like, for example, if we talk about agriculture, like I said, agriculture has a lot of opportunity that if we can fully utilize and harness those opportunities, we'll be able to reduce poverty. Now, also, Jigawa, we have also mineral resources. Now, we'll try as much as we have a program of rural transformation. That program of rural transformations, which we intend to do, which will involve expansion of agriculture and also trying to, as much as possible, to connect the rural economies with the agriculture and solid minerals. That will also help a lot to bring in employment, and also by bringing in employment, a lot of poverty will be reduced because people will have something doing, and also in addition to that, small businesses will spring up, and that will help a lot in reducing the level of poverty in the state. Wow. Now, also in addition to that, we have so many other things like trying as much as possible to.
Your Excellency, if you can hear me,
empowerment.
My apologies, yeah. If you can hear me, I'm talking about poverty for children. That report that your government collaborated to produce says most children in the state are deprived of their basic rights for survival, protection, and development. Children, poverty for children. How is it being dealt with? Can you hear me, Your Excellency?
Well, like I said, poverty
for children,
yeah, but a lot
children. Poverty in children.
Yeah.
Children. How is that being addressed?
Okay. Yeah, okay. The poverty in children also will try as much as possible to address it in the sense that now, for example, once the mothers are empowered, And so once the mothers are economically empowered, then they will be able to help reduce the poverty from the children. Now, and also the issue of we have issue of malnutrition that also has to do with the poverty, and I think we have done a lot on that. The recent survey by UNICEF has shown that Jigawa State has done a lot of investment in terms of that, and we are going to upscale that. Once that is done, we'll definitely be able to reduce the poverty in children also.
Well, it's a long way, Your Excellency, and clearly your job is cut out for you. Because another issue that's been perennial in Jigawa State is that of flooding, which have been said to have destroyed power lines, roads, houses, and telecom infrastructure. More than 60,000 houses at some point within the past 2 years or thereabout got destroyed as a result of it. We know it is coming. What are the challenges that's making it difficult for Jigawa State to address the problem of flooding, destroying lives and property? And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, you see, the issue of flooding is something that I've been seen from the surface, but you see, it's something that is multidimensional. Now, for example, the flooding is as a result of so many reasons. Now, the ones, for example, like I said, the river overflow. These our river banks are overflowing every year in, year out. And you see, these rivers are not being maintained for so many years. And this is an issue that requires a lot of funding. We have complained this to the federal government, we have complained to the relevant authorities, and they have understood what we are saying. And I think now there is a collaborative effort that is going on. For instance, recently, His Excellency, the governor, has ordered for 2 machines that will be used to remove the taifa grass and also to do part of the dredging. Also, the Hadeja Jama area has also brought in 2 machines. Now, presently, already a technical committee is working, and His Excellency the Governor have also set up 2 technical committees. One to ensure that this issue of flooding is dealt with, and that technical committee is strongly working in conjunction with Hadeja Jama River. So we also, as much as possible, try to see we upscale this process and we sustain this process. And by what we have, even as at day before yesterday, we had a meeting with MD Hadeja Jama'are, His Excellency, and myself. And at the meeting, the MD Hadeja Jama'are has told us as much as possible, they have put in place several measures to ensure that at least the level of flooding is reduced by about 60%. And that will be very great. And also, in addition to that, we are also given a lot of enlightenment to the people along the river banks, so as to ensure that as much as possible, the level of destruction has been reduced to barest minimum. And I'm sure with all the effort put in place by both the state government and the Hadeja Jama'are, then I'm sure really the next year flooding will definitely be a minimum, even if it will be there.
Yes, Mr. Namadi, just to take you very quickly back to the issue of malnutrition, my colleague just took the question right out of my mind. Relatedly now to the problem of child poverty, the community-based management of acute malnutrition centers that you have in Jigawa has a problem of abscondment, by the way, to the tune of 39,155 in recent times. You say that empowerment of mothers will help to tackle this problem. But I want you to be specific about the initiatives, because if this is at the heart of the issues, then the increase, that, coming from the United Nations Children's Emergency Fund is insignificant if this is the situation in Jigawa State.
Yeah, you see, like I said, the empowerment of mothers, we have so many programs. We have the cash transfer system introduced by the state government for pregnant women and lactating mothers, and that cash transfer is working very well. Also, in addition to that, the state government is also, in addition to our God breeding programs, which are normally for women, giving a lot of empowerment for women, and that has really been a very successful program with a retention rate of about 80% and recovery rate of about 90%. So we intend to upscale that program, and that program is really giving the woman a lot of economic independence. So once that is upscaled, and also at the same time try as much as possible to also upscale the cash transfer system, which the state government is introducing. I think that will go a long way in giving a lot of economic independence to the women. And once that is done, And once that is done, I'm sure we will be able to greatly reduce the poverty in children.
All right. All right. Let's wind down now. By the way, I mean, it's good to see that states can also get involved with electricity, the value chain. So perhaps you're looking to latch onto that. But quickly, it looks like this election has brought up the whole Emirates, will I say, rivalry now between Hadejia and Dutse. We saw what played up until this moment. And I wonder, how do you plan to do that? Yes, Jigawa might seem to be a quiet state, but there are the intricate politics that go on. And I mean, Jigawa has been largely peaceful. So what are your plans to mend those fences and calm the frayed nerves?
You see, the emeritism politics is always being overbloated outside, but we that are in Jigawa, we know that that is really a minimal something. It's not something that has significance to affect the relationship that is going on between the people of Jigawa State. Now, for example, you see that the election was a very successful election. We were able to win in the 26 out of the 27 local government, and that has shown that, and with a very wide margin, and that has shown that Jigawa people are one, and all of us are one, and we work together for the growth of the state. So the issue of emeritism as a factor that is dividing the state, I think, is only been overbloated. As far as we are concerned, in Jigawa, we are all one, and we are all one people. Whether Hadejia and Dutse, there is nothing. Hadejia and Dutse, we have a lot of intermarriages, we have a lot of relationships, a lot of things are in common. So the issue of emeritism, I think, is just being overbloated outside the state, but we that are in the state, we know that that is not significant enough. It's not even worth mentioning as a factor.
All right, Your Excellency, we're out of time, but we hope that you will address, because I think in 2021, October 2021, the NUT had said that they had a 9,000 teacher gap in Jigawa State that needed to be addressed. So we're hoping that you look into all of those as well, because you've got plans for education. But we have to thank you for talking to us this morning, Omar Namadi, the governor-elect of Jigawa State and deputy governor at the moment. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, so that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Oso. Have a very good day.
I'm Kayode Kikilu from here in the nation's capital, but who knows? You might see me somewhere else tomorrow.
Transfer window or not.
Fingers crossed on that. Thank you for watching. I'm Bukola Koka.
Please have a wonderful day and keep praying for Nigeria. We're still one. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.